Up next, we discuss what at least feels like a drastic uptick in spam calls offering loans of various sorts and consider what kinds of things people can do or not do to protect themselves from that kind of thing. Welcome to the Call Like I See It podcast. I'm James Keys here with Tunde Ogunlana. Our second part of our discussion today. You and I had talked about over the past few months how we've both, separately, obviously, been getting on our phones tons and tons of calls offering us money. Hey, here's some money, and specifically loans. There's loans I think you first mentioned to me, man, I get all these emails and calls about business loans all the time. You're a business owner. I'm a business owner too. I get these same calls. I'm like, what? And then now I'm getting all these offers, and I know you have them too, about personal loans. Like they call your personal line and say, hey, we know you've been looking at a loan and yada, yada, yada. And so we got these great numbers. I mean, you might not have been that interested before, but you're going to love this. And it's like, well, I haven't been looking for a loan. So what's going on here? So I know that you had some interesting thoughts on this. And so I wanted to get your thoughts. I wanted you to put it on the record, so to speak. So what do you think is going on with all of these apparent, these spam calls and messages that we're getting? And we got some stuff in the show notes. Apparently this is not just us that are getting all this about offering all these loans and things like that. What's going on here?
My first word will be predation, to its true definition.
These are
right?
big words,
the act of actually being a predator. Mm-hmm. We've got a lot of actors out there that are preying on the public in different parts of the public. Unfortunately, a lot of elderly. You and I may be getting those actors that prey on the business community. Because we have, registered corporations and we're professionals that there's enough metadata being sold behind our backs that probably tell the right folks, what our demographic as kind of business guys. So we're getting those kind of solicitations. And like you said, there's also the personal. I'm sure there's all the metadata in the dark web about, the mortgages I own and, the different loans I have out there and all that. So I'm sure I'm a target because of that kind of information being out there. But yeah, I think it's predation and it's just, again, going back to these societal structural changes we have with the means of communication. So before, let's say 20 years ago, 25 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, I could have got an email. So let's say 25 to 30 years ago, before really email was prevalent, really the only way for someone to get at anybody would have been through a solicitation in the mail or a phone call.
Yeah.
And that means I got to be by my home phone at the time because we didn't have cell phones. So if I'm on the road, no one can bother me, and I'd have to go look at my mailbox, right? So it was didn't feel as harassing. Now I've got the cell phone in my pocket at all times, and that gives me text messages, phone calls, and emails. So anytime I check my phone, there's a risk that I've been harassed, and it's to like the conversation we've been having. It's literally like a dozen times a day. I'm getting some sort of hit by somebody soliciting me to try and give me money. And I'll finish with this, James, and hand it back. The bad joke in my head became, I thought we saw what happened 20 years ago when we tried this. Because remember, in 2006, it was throwing money at everybody for a mortgage. And that didn't end too well. So,
but that was banks at least, we don't even know who these people are.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I'm just saying the idea of, if someone's throwing a lot of money at people, it's coming from somewhere. And if they're not being underwritten properly and all that, what happens when that house of cards collapses? That's kind of the point I was thinking, we've seen this before, unregulated throwing money at people.
Well, I think, I look at it from the other angle, and I know we talked about it offline a little bit. I think this is about the ease in which your information, you did touch on this a little bit, your information can be obtained, but more particularly the ease in which these contacts can go out. Like there's a lot of friction that's required. You got to pay somebody hourly. They got to be able to deal with rejection if they're going to just make a bunch of calls all the time. Now, and then there's been, they did the automated calls and things like robodials, all that kind of stuff, but it's a recording. Now, the ability for AI to be able to, and then they can use voices and stuff like that, where it can respond to voice and try to walk you down a path or whatever, because a lot of them, I don't answer the calls. but they follow a
Yeah.
same script when I see the voicemails and so forth. And I listened to a couple of them before I did the show today because I'm like, is this AI or is this a person? And it's AI. I mean, this is not a person calling. And so if you can do that, I mean, I think when we talked about this before, you were like, yeah, if you can have, like you used to do cold calls, but again, those were for legitimate businesses. And the hard sell piece I thought was very interesting when you talked about this. So I would like your thought on that when you get back in. But that if you can not have to pay someone hourly to do this, if you can just have an AI agent going nonstop trying to just do this, and if you get a 0.0001% hit, then you hit the jackpot. You know, like the percentage of success that you need, the easier it is to blanket a group or a selection of people, the lower percentage you need to actually go through to make it worth your while. So as it becomes easier and easier and easier to contact greater and greater numbers of people, the lower the threshold is that they need any success. So I can ignore every call from here to eternity, and I'll just get more and more calls because it's becoming easier and easier and easier to call people. And so it's like, you know, this is, I don't know where this is going to go. Like I'm sitting here wondering because, you know, I got a few lines. I got my business line, I got my personal line, all this other stuff. And I'm like, at a certain point, like I don't answer my phone a lot of times now, you know, because it's like, well, it's just going to be one of these again. And if I answer it, then I'm going to go in, they're going to put me in this other, you know, category of people that potentially answer. So that means they're going to call more. And so I'm like, my phone has become a voicemail service. You know, send me a text, I'll respond, I'll hit you back type of thing. Or leave me a message and I'll hit you back. Because it's like, if I don't recognize the number, my phone is more of a distraction than it used to me.
You know, it's funny. So this is similar topic, but different solicitation. Because I would joke with my wife on my phone and my WhatsApp. I would get constantly for like this ended for some reason, but for a while, like a year ago, I was constantly getting hit up by, I guess, the people trying to get lonely men that, you know, it's like a cute Asian chick that looks like she's 20 years old or something, you know,
really?
Like, hi, you know, just comes in with a picture and says, hi. And it's like,
my God.
You know what I mean? So I would show it to my wife and say, hey, should I answer? And she'd be like, no, just like you said, that's what reminded me. It was because she would say no, because then they're going to consider you as somebody interested.
Yeah, you're a target. You're a dupe at that point. Like, oh, yeah.
No, but the funny thing is, so I would say, yeah, watch this. So I would suck them in and I'd be like, yeah, hey, what's up? And then she'd be like, hey, you know, they'd try and like say some sort of wording to make it look like they know you.
Uh-huh.
And I'd be like, yeah, I don't remember when we met. How do we meet? Blah, blah, blah. And so they started, so I'd take them down for like 5-6 minutes, you know, just, and then they'd be like, yeah, please send me a picture and all that. And I'd send them a picture of the president, right? And I'd send them a picture of, or some movie star, just something random. And then sometimes they get pissed off and other times they just wouldn't say anything. So it's funny, but I stopped doing that and I started doing the spam delete, you know, that it's report spam. But it's funny you say that because it reminded me that I used to have fun with them in an attempt to just have fun. But in reading this, in preparing for today and reading up a bit, I realized that you're right. That was back when it was like a year ago, texting and stuff. That's what I mean, how quickly this has grown since advances.
This has grown
because now what I was reading, and I'm glad that I read this because I haven't picked up the phone calls to your point, and I won't. And I want to say this for the audience as well, because I was ignorant to this until last night. Reading this is the AI agents now, some of them are programmed to when you pick up and just say hello and maybe say a few words to pick up your voice.
Yeah.
Then what happens
they're going to use your voice when they call other people.
Correct.
Yeah.
But think about the amount that they can scrape through your Bluetooth and all your contacts and all that. I mean, these things are so intrusive. So the AI agent could get all your contacts, get your voice, and now begin to target your contacts so that when some scam artist wants to scam people, they can say, okay, go to all of James's contacts and make it like it's his voice calling them for something. And it could be a fundraiser for your kids.
It's worse because they can also mimic your number when they call your contacts. They can,
correct, yeah.
I've had the issue with my published number, you know, for my business where I'll call people and they'd be like, it's coming up as spam. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I rarely call people from this number. And what I found out was that other people, because my number is published on the internet, people are mimicking, or there's businesses or not businesses, I'd call them spam people or scammers that will mimic a business number a legitimate business number to then call other people. So it's like, don't give them your voice. Don't pick up the calls. Don't give them your voice and like I said, at what point then does our phone become more of a hindrance than a help? If we're in this situation already now, and how this has exploded. So is there anything else you would like now as a friendly and decent person, not as a financial person or an attorney, for myself, what do you have any other advice as far as how people should or can handle these, or are we just, screw it? Is this like, hey, call your congressman type of thing?
Well, hold on, man. Wait a second. Hold on. Wait. Whoa. You just gave us both professionally some negative stigmas.
No, I'm saying
you just said,
no liability.
You said as attorneys
I'm
and
saying
financial
no liability.
people,
I'm not giving legal advice. You're not giving financial advice.
And then you're telling the audience that in order to save them from people like us, they got to call their congressman. Come on, man. You got this all backward. We're supposed to be bashing the Congress people and putting ourselves up. What are you doing here?
Oh, yeah. I guess the answer probably would be to hire a lawyer and let's start doing
I would say that, hire a lawyer now, because remember, if you call your congressman, they're going to say, man, they destroyed the government last year with Doge. There's no more Consumer Protection Bureau, so we got nothing for you, man.
Political donations from these companies that are doing.
Yeah, exactly. So we got nothing for you. So then let's just call a lawyer. So that's probably. But don't call. Hey, for the audience, don't call me. Call him.
Oh yeah, don't call me. I don't do that kind of law. But there's surely a lawyer in your area that can give you options. But again, this isn't legal advice. This isn't financial.
Yeah. No, but it's just I think just to finish off is just from my point is just look, we're gonna have to be prepared. I think for more of this as a society, as we just like I said, the structural changes really as we enter and remain in the information age, right? That this is kind of the way that computers, AI, and all that will continue to affect our lives. This is just going to be one of those examples that's not going away.
No, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is that if you're not expecting a call from someone, then you got to be weary of answering it. If you can't see who it is, be weary of answering it, because unsolicited calls, nine times out of 10, those unsolicited and unknown calls, random numbers, those are spam calls that I get. At least for me, it's not unsimilar to. I don't open for my personal mail at my home. I don't open it that often because 9 out of 10 pieces of mail are some type of solicitation, to the resident at, or even if they get my name and then they have the address there, it's like, oh, okay, this is a offer for a credit, or this is a magazine for, hey, all these services I can get. And we've come to accept that, as a society, that we're going to get all these mails for all these kind of, solicitations, this and that, advertisements in some cases, fine. But I very rarely do I get a letter that I was not expecting that is like, oh, man, I better check this out and look at it. Most of the time, if it's something I'm expecting, I get it through email and I'm kind of looking for it and so forth. Same thing with the phone. So, I mean, I think we are going to a place where if you don't expect a call, if somebody calls up, but I always tell myself, and then, my kids, everything's like, look, if somebody's calling you and it's legit, they have something for you, they'll leave a message. It's like, oh, okay, hey, I was calling, this is what was up, and, give me a call back. If you get that, call them back. You're good to go. But the answering calls, like I'm going back to when I grew up, before we had caller ID. You answer the phone all the time and have no idea who it is. Now, no way. Like I'm not answering the phone if I don't know who it is. So that may be the nuclear option, but we may be there at this point because it's overwhelming. And again, at what point do phones become a hindrance where it's like, oh man, I don't know if I should have a phone because all I'm going to do is get all these scam calls. And so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Well, you make a really good analogy with the mailbox because clearly that's the way people did communicate personally for a long time.
Yeah.
And for 100 years in our society, in a sense, I mean, normally, I know mail's been around a lot longer, but the kind of USPS regular mail type of thing has been very efficient for a lot of people. And then now, like, it's a great point that now it's not the way that we communicate normally. And I think just to finish off,
it's maybe realize something else. Mail is not. It's not a personal correspondence or even financial correspondence. That's not its primary thing anymore.
Well, that's why, like you're saying, so maybe the telephone is going that direct. Email clearly has gone that direction where it's a lot of spam and stuff. But just to finish out, you bring up a good point because I would say we both have teenage kids in the house. And I think to finish off, like, we also have to be a lot more conscious, right? Like us parents probably, we need to be prepared. Our kids are going to have learning curves, and they might actually accidentally get scammed and all that while they're teenagers or young adults. And then I think the other one, unfortunately, and just to finish and bookend my beginning with the word predation, and we did the show on Facebook and how 10% of their revenue comes from scam ads, but it's mostly targeted towards the elderly, because that's the other people with cognitive declines, onsets of dementia. And I think for those of us that are younger, to protect our elderly people and our friends and our elderly friends, elderly clients, elderly family members. And that's what I mean by the predation. Like, you would think that that's the role of the government, to stop companies being predators on elderly people in our society, but that's not happening. So it's just, I think, on us more to be more conscious as individuals for those of us we care about.
It's an excellent point. And I'll just say this, it's not just cognitive decline, because one of the primary tactics is always to create a sense of urgency and fear and so forth. And so a lot of times elderly people are more responsive to that, so like, hey, I'm your son and I'm, trapped here or whatever. And so a lot of times the plausibility meter is able to be suppressed because the fear that kicks in, or the urgency that kicks in, because that urgency piece is a big part of how these scams and this spam is trying to leverage you. And like we talked about in the last thought, like we talked about with this, but offline, it was like, imagine, I feel bad for the person who gets these scam calls when they're in a tight spot monetarily. And it's like, man, I need something to float me. There's payday loan spots all over, because of that. Like, sometimes people are in a tight spot monetarily. And it's like, man, these types of things, like, we don't know who these people are. Somebody might show up and break your legs for all we know. You start dealing with these.
Let's not get into it. We could have a separate show that could be by design, on how to design a society that has a certain percentage of the population that can be preyed on.
Yeah. We can have that show another time.
Right, so. That is desperate, yeah. So,
we'll just say there is a worldview that does account for that and does seek to leverage.
Create scarcity.
But I think we can wrap it up. We appreciate everybody for joining us on this episode of Call Like I See It. Subscribe to the podcast, rate it, review it, tell us what you think, send it to a friend. Until next time, I'm James Keys.
I'm Tunde Ogunlana.
All right, we'll talk soon.